Stick it, Chuck. He's got a gun. He's got a gun. He's got it.
Yeah, you caught that. All right. Let's see. It's right. So let me go ahead and work this. Welcome, Panther and Cage, where we talk about a variety of topics, usually associated with social and cultural bigotry. I don't think it's letting me go public with my screen. So, people, so sound is good. Let me know if you hear echo at any time. This thing is a little bit different than what it used to be. I'm trying to. Here we go. Back. What do I want captions? Yeah, guess it's not letting me stream publicly anymore. All right, so go ahead and share it. What's up, Amber? It's Facebook fixed it. I can't share it publicly anymore. So now you'll have to follow or be on my friends list to be able to see these live streams. But that's okay. I already know they try to suppress half the information or the points of views that will make other people think, and that's cool. Now, let me get to the reason why we are here. Now, you saw the video in the very beginning. Hopefully, if you came in, you already saw that video. We'll review it again tonight. We're going to go a little more in depth on this. So let me go ahead and say welcome to Panther and Cage. Good evening. My name is Anthony, but I was, for this purpose of this, I'm your host, and I'm referred to as Panther. So my co-host Cage is not with us this evening. He could pop in, but I doubt it. And this is police brutality, the shooting of Tri-Marea Charles, Tri-Marea Charles, excuse me, part 2. Now, this live stream is usually a weekly live stream, and we speak from a variety of topics, but we speak from a very unique Afrocentric perspective. And I encourage the viewing audience to participate and contribute to this platform via your relevant and also tangible and progressive focused comments, right? Now, these discussions are here to help us provide a path to tangible solutions in the future. And as I've stated previously, our goal is to reveal all the points and the calls for action that will cease the perpetuation of social and cultural bigotry. If this is your first time joining me, welcome to Panther Cage, and I hope that you're going to enjoy this. Now, lastly, so last week we had a very detailed discussion, but it was only the first part of this, and it's kind of superficial before we get into the actual video. We talked about the details that were associated with the February 7, 2025 officer-involved shooting of Tri-Marea Charles. Now, we talked about the evidence and we speculated the official police narrative that was used in the incident that is now ruled to justify shooting. Again, the local demands for police accountability and transparency became the topic of discussion again, okay? Police accountability has again become the center of this officer-involved shooting incident because the public demanded again, and it blames the leadership, okay? And that's likely due to some political backlash from the 2024 Titusville mayoral election. And when it comes to leadership, you know, the people that are claiming this is the problem are not being truly clear about the problems, okay? Now, they're not addressing all the problems that are systemic, nor are they clarifying if this is the result of some kind of organized crime, right? But they are ringing the corruption bell. And I guess that's okay. We never got into the discussion talking about political action committees. We never got into that whole thing. I think I said in one of my lives, we were talking about special interest groups. No one ever got into that more on the national political scale versus the local politics. And I think that, you know, everybody needs to be more articulate about proving that, okay? So be more articulate about proving that. Now, I do know that some of the pundits that are over on Brevard News, they have moved the goalposts on some of these issues. And I know that that's not a sign of objectivity, but I'll even give you a nugget to kind of show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now, I had the community been more organized in how they approached this problem at the very beginning, this problem of police accountability and transparency, they would have known requesting the full unedited video to be as a standard and a practice that would be common to the local community as well as the police department operating within that community, right? But it's not. And we got to ask why. And that's because the message has only been heard and some community leaders have taken no action other than to line their personal pockets and to further their individual agenda to attain power by attrition. Now, I say that because to obtain a complete and unedited video isn't revelatory at this stage in the game, and I hate to refer this as a game because this is real life. Hey, this is real life for people like myself. There usually are no second chances when the bullets fly. Okay, we don't get a skip card and resume play. You know, we don't get to resume play with full privileges. In this life, and we can get a draw 4, and we can get a sorry go back to start. We've already endured a do not pass go, do not collect $200 for over 400 years. Kimberly Latrice Jones articulated that with sheer perfection in 2020. And if you don't know who that is, Google that. I have to pause there because it will respond to me. But when dealing with police brutality and racial profiling and the systemic racism that's found within the judicial system, we don't get a second chance, all right? I know that sounds biased. I have friends that are in the judicial system. Yes, I know that sounds biased, but if you live in Brevard County, you don't have to have grounds to disagree with me about that, but in no way will you try to whitewash what I just spoke, that allegorical representation that I just gave, okay? Crosley Green, all right? Those are the only 2 names that I need to say to prove my point. So anything else that anybody may have out there to try to pivot or deflect or even counter that, it's that's gonna be filed under the automatic Hall of Notes response, because I can't go for that crap. Let me go ahead and move to the next. So I mentioned Crosley Green. All right, and I've been waiting to do a live stream about him for years now. But I keep getting turned around because we haven't been organized enough to get to the governor to exercise the executive clemency, to grant Crosley Green clemency, to commute his sentence, to vacate the remainder of the sentence for a better or full exoneration or restoration of his rights. We can't even do that through a pardon. Okay, we can't ask the governor to give a pardon, right? And then the crazy thing is that it's like we can't get Crosley Green a pardon, but we can pardon January 6th. In fact, I just read an article yesterday that said Pam Bondi fired 6 judges that prosecuted some of the January 6ers. So, I'm gonna wait in the comments. I'm just wait to see if somebody's paying attention. And if you disagree with that, because I know, I got a friend and me and her talk about the judicial system all the time. I don't go too in depth because I have to map it out. I have to go the slow way. I know that she's far ahead of me, but I'm just gonna put this out there. So anybody who's out there who disagrees with me, don't get upset. I just uncovered this as an example of judicial injustice. And I just wanted it to be a sign that systemic racism does still exist before y'all tell me what you believe, all right? And when you tell me what you believe, keep in mind, belief is accepted without the existence of evidence, all right? So for the past 5 years, I've shown you evidence to the contrary and forced you to have a deeper understanding of what we're talking about, like things like this, right? So if you want to argue with me, you have to argue on the merits of gubernatorial clemency, all right? That's what we're going to talk about. Why Crosley Green can't get a pardon, all right? And when we look at, let me go ahead and make this bigger for you, because I do believe I'm not being fair by staying on the screen. All right. So we're talking about Crosley Green. Some of the facts around him is Kim Halleck is a individual witness to the crime, and she fabricated details associated with the murder of Chip Flynn. All right. Now, Crosley Green was charged for kidnapping, robbery, and the murder of Chip Flynn, all which took place in April of 1989. All right. Now, the Florida state prosecutor knowingly withheld exonerating evidence. Okay, the case was shoddy. It was bad. Just the whole process was just something that I would say don't put faith in that system. Okay. And I'm only saying that because I'm looking at the evidence that's before us, like this kind of situation. And January 6th, you got insurrectionists, and you can't get an innocent man. You can't even commute his sentence. He's already served over 36 years. Now, he was unconstitutionally convicted. All right. And here's the thing: when he was originally convicted, he was sentenced to the death penalty. Okay. Now, let me go ahead and get it. He was sentenced to the death penalty. Off of shoddy evidence, you get sentenced to the death penalty, and then you tell me that I'm supposed to have faith in this system. Anyway, getting back to obtaining a complete and unedited body cam dash video from law enforcement, it's not revelatory at this stage. If you've been conscious enough to remember that being a complete issue of public conspiracy that was surrounding Sandra Bland. Okay, it's the reason you're supposed to say their name. And I don't know how many times on this platform we've talked about it, but we talked about, how they released this edited video and it showed the same car pass by 2 times. Now, we, the public, knew that we could not just accept the police narrative, at that time, right? So for everybody that is trailing all of this movement that just all of a sudden came out of nowhere, y'all need to get up to speed, and you need to get up to speed about our current status. Okay. Let me get it there so you can see it. I know it's a lot on the screen. I'm gonna take my time. I'm not gonna rush through things, but I did cover this. This is still simply the review. Okay. Now, last live stream, I talked about the current political landscape and how it was changed for the worse. I spoke, about my initial concerns that attracted me to this entire Tri-Marea Charles incident being associated with the recently passed permitless carry law that went into effect on July 1st of 2023. Now, at that time, we reviewed the fact that the Trump administration, or last week, I should say, we reviewed that the Trump administration immediately shut down a national database that was used to track and document police misconduct after Governor DeSantis had already signed House Bill 601. And that law specifically limited the power of the existing civilian review boards and the ones that were operating here in Florida. Now, that tragic Democratic playbooks that we keep employing, that we're now employing, they're not going to work, especially not this time, okay? Over the past 5 years, we've made demands for public reform, and we made those demands clear to America. And that has been met with legislative strategic resistance. So now we have to forge a whole new approach, okay? This is the time that we have to follow through with the boycotts and the acquisitions of national political representation. And that's the most important thing that we need to do. When I say the acquisitions of political representation, we need more legislators that are actually going to represent us. The ones that actually take our community seriously, as well as put our demands back on the table. All right. But protesting, okay, the form of strategic form of resistance that we chose right now, I guess, protesting and doxing the police, those are not feasible resolutions to our current climate. All right. And let me get more detailed about this, because this is hard for some people to understand. All right. I had arguments about this. Okay. Not a lot of feedback when I told them, but I had to, protesting right now really isn't the best strategic response. All right. We see what ICE is doing to people of color. And I'm going to tell you that they're using facial recognition software for you while they wear masks. Okay. I think personally that's some of those Proud Boys, the ones that we try to tell you we're trying to infiltrate law enforcement from the get-go. And that's why they're wearing those masks, and they don't want you to know who they are, because we did a really good job back from 2020 to 2023 about that. Now, I'm going to tell you now, one thing you got to understand, you have to know, and I think I just saw a video with Bar News where they were talking about flock cameras. Yeah, those have been out for a long time. AI is being used in ways that enhance apprehension, okay? And it helps with law enforcement tactics, okay? Whether it be the flock cameras or even those AI-assisted cameras that are used to alert traffic enforcement that your tag or your license registration to your tag is suspended, all right? This is entering a whole new level of the game, all right? That's why last live stream, I said we're on a new strategic echelon, and echelon means one of a series of levels or grades in an organizational field of activity. Yes, I have to explain that because sometimes I get this, oh, what do you mean by that? I didn't understand that. So there it is. It's a level, all right? So when people talk about I'm on a new level, all right, that's now we got to prove it, okay? We're in a whole different area now, all right? So we got to get right ahead, get to the meat and potatoes of this live stream. So let me go ahead and let me get to the, let's see if I had a photo of this. I think I have a photo. Upload, you know what? There was a photo, but I don't think I'm, all right. But the point is that I want to make, let's get right to it. Who was Tri-Marea Charles? Okay. I asked this question. When I first started thinking about this, it was from the facts, but you know, I didn't have all the facts about Tri-Marea, all right, not as a person. But I did want to find out though, from those who live outside of his family, those who who have felt his touch. You know, I want to be extremely fair. I want because I don't know. I don't want one of the things that I always notice is that how the media portrays it, right? So, and it's not so common. It's not so uncommon, right? But this is how the media chose to portray him. Let me go ahead and get this on the screen so you can see. This is how the media chose to portray him. I saw the photo that Channel 6 used, the photo that Fox News used, and the photo that West TV there. You see that there on the screen. I saw them how they use their photo. The ones they use as the moniker when you're trying to search who is Tri-Marea Charles. It was of course likely, you know, just to help the process of demonization of the person. We already know what that is. It's another piece of evidence of systemic racism because the news is supposed to be objective and not discriminative. But I wonder who signed off on the use of these particular photos when there are tons of others, especially when he was playing football in Cocoa High. All right, there's others across the internet. And I chose to. That was the one I was about to show, but I chose not to use that specifically because I didn't want to insult the family. All right, I really feel for their loss, and I'm not really happy about how this resulted. Really hoping that this doesn't happen again. But I wanted to find out exactly who Tri-Marea was. All right. You know, when they published Kyle Rittenhouse and Austin Metcalf's photo, they used the most studious and innocent photo, and bring this on mute. So when they do the Kyle Rittenhouses and the Austin Metcalfs, you know, they find the most studious and innocent photo that they can find. All right. But when it's our community, they find the most self-incriminating images that they can possibly use to facilitate their negative narrative, right? And I'm supposed to believe that, you know, the introduction to the information facilitate the media. And when I say media, I'm specifically referencing the news outlets. It's not supposed to be evidence of systemic racism. I'm not supposed to see that. I'm not supposed to identify that. Some of these people really believe that you're supposed to be, gullible enough to believe that they're being fair. But all of a sudden, when I asked the question of a week ago, who was Tri-Marea Charles, media went silent. Everybody, got nothing in DMs, nothing about the positivity of this man. And I just know he had to be doing something, because there were too many people that care about him. So I found it hard to be, objective enough to present any evidence to the contrary of what Fox News narrative kind of portrayed, that he was an evil person, basically. But I just found that hard to believe after knowing that, that he as an individual had an opportunity to get out of Brevard County. And, but just because, we get these opportunities, just because people get these opportunities, it doesn't mean that they don't have multiple chances or opportunities laying at their front door. Okay. Now, and I talked about, I know that it's extremely hard to leave this place. And once you do, it presents a whole nother challenge. One that your kids are not going to be familiar with, in maintaining and growing in a new and unfamiliar place. So I don't know why this man's bright future took a turn that brought him back here to Brevard County. All right. But I talked to someone that knew him, and they said that they don't know why he just came back. And they said that, all they knew is that he had kind of gotten into stealing cars. Now, of course, that's an allegation. Don't know 100%, but but what I do know is that I just talked to a cousin of mine who just came back from college, and he came back here, and even he said that there's nothing here, and I remember when I left and came back, same thing. Now I'm not here to demonize this place. I do that enough, but I'm not doing that right now. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to tell you the truth as someone who's traveled the world and then come back here. There's nothing here for those people who return beyond the idea of a true retirement, right? And that's something that needs to be brought to the city councils across the Brevard County community. Now, I know it is. I know they're talking about it. They're fighting over funding. I get it, but I'm just saying this because I have a cousin that just returned from playing basketball in New York, and he, when given the opportunity to stay here, or potentially branch out or move to Atlanta, seeing that there is more opportunity for him in Atlanta, that's nothing for our community to be proud about, right? But that's how it works. Even our local business, even our local economy. But I remember when I was younger, I had to go buy shoes. I would have to go all the way to Orlando and subsidize the Orange County community before I had to do it here. And a lot of it was because people just, I don't know. Let's just say that at Merritt Island Mall, I don't know if it's even classified, that you can classify it as a mall still. So a food court ain't even a food court. Just a hole in the wall. Grab some Chinese food. But I gotta ask the question, why do we not have anything that can help keep people here who return here from returning to a life of crime? All right, we got a few things. I noticed there's a few people leading, some pastors, some small little tiny groups, the little kids. Don't talk about the 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, the 20s that come back. We don't have nothing that keeps them from turning to a life of crime. Why does this place, or why does it seem like this place is easier to breed depression and criminality, the people who return here? That was a big question I sat and I asked with my relative that we were sitting talking about. Okay, so those questions are applicable to Tri-Marea as well as it was for me, as well as it was for my little cousin, as well as it was for the rest of my family. And it's just going to apply to all the little future athletes that are playing in high school right now. So you can't dodge this question, right? And this will be a difference, this would be the difference in discussions of all future people that may get caught up in the system, risking their lives down the road to nowhere called criminality. Just checking the feedback. Now, the last live stream I played, the video published by the Titusville Police Chief, John Lau, the one that was published on February 13th, and we reviewed some facts about the case. I'm not going to play that video tonight unless you really want to. All right, so I'm gonna jump forward because we already talked about the details, and I want to get that out in that video. If you missed it, go back, go check that out. See. If there's anyone who missed that, you want to review the facts, like I just said, go back and review that video when you get a chance. Because I only referenced them very briefly, and I will only reference them very briefly from this moment on. But I do have information here in my notes that I have to review if there's any contention. I doubt it. All right. So I'm gonna pick up where I left off last live stream. Right. I felt the way that we were handling the incident was very antiquated. Right. I felt like it was an old method that was out. And that's from the top down. Okay. I felt like the methods that we're using failed to address the culture, as opposed to understanding that the culture is what seems to remain pervasive throughout our entire nation. Right. And when we review that video, whose lens are we looking at? Okay. When we review this video, whose lens are we looking through? Are we looking at it through Tri-Marea Charles? Are we looking at it from the view of an investigative reporter? Are we looking at this from the community activist point of view? Are we looking at this from the police chief's point of view? Mayors? Could it be the second, officer involved in the shooting? And have we thought about, looked at it from his point of view? Are we looking at it from the officer who was wearing the body camera? And we're talking about Officer Baez, allegedly, right? Are we looking at it from Officer Baez's point of view? Despite there being so many different perspectives, I thought that the officer shooting him from behind, who was allegedly Officer Baez, they held the most interesting point of view. And that's where the cross or the crux of this whole idea of officer discretion comes in. All right. We'll play it one more time. I want you to get this view. I just want you to see this view.
No, Second Chapter. He's got a gun. He's got a gun. He's got a.
Not sure everybody's seen that so many times. They're probably tired of seeing it. I am. That's why I'm doing it tonight. That's why I'm doing it so late. Because I'm just tired of watching. Now, Officer Baez, in the context of officer discretion, in the context of policing, refers to the authority that law enforcement officers have to make decisions based on their own judgment within the boundaries of the law and how to handle various situations that they encounter. All right, in my opinion, I thought that the pressure should have been on Officer Baez from the beginning. And I expressed that so many times. And I thought the pressure was supposed to be on him to answer questions like, did you feel like Tri-Marea was a threat? All right. When did you feel like he was an immediate threat? Did Tri-Marea attempt to punch you? Where did he attempt to punch you if he assaulted you? When did you feel that he wasn't a threat? Did you see that his firearms magazine had fallen out of the magazine well and the extended magazine had separated and the rounds were spent all over the ground? When Tri-Marea picked the firearm back up, did you believe there to be a round in the firearms chamber? Why did you shoot Tri-Marea Charles in the back, even though he was running away? When you saw that Tri-Marea Charles had fallen down, likely because of his wounds, why did you stand over the body and say, suspect rushed me with a gun? Did you know if he had a gun when he rushed you? When were you aware that he had a firearm? Was it before he had a physical altercation with you, or was it after he had the physical altercation with you? Why did you choose that course of action as the most appropriate in this particular incident? All of these questions and many more I would have posed to him to find out what the situation looked like to him, right? To get his discretion. But let me express this as well. I don't think it would fare well with the community that was demanding transparency for the last 4 months at city council meetings to put the other officer involved on a record with the deposition or even on the stand, by the way, because that officer's discretion would put it all to bed, in my opinion, just as a justification of the shooting. All right, now his perspective of an armed, and that's by definition, equipped or carrying a weapon or weapons, right? But his perspective of an armed person running towards him gives him or her the justification to shoot as he or she is trained to do so. You disagree, this is your time. We can speculate the heck out of this. We're about to move forward. So I just want you, I just want y'all to understand that when you put the other officer, when you put him in a deposition, I'm sure, or if you put him on a stand, what he says is going to give the shooting its justification. I don't know if they did a forensic breakdown of whose bullet hit where. I don't know if it will matter. I don't think it matters now at this point. I'm gonna jump back just past the video, but I'm gonna get to it. I just want to get to this real quick. All right. 45 caliber Glock 21 SF. All right. Now I'm not gonna show you the actual gun. I'm gonna show the same one that you can get from Google. That's redundant now. Let me go ahead and read this. So it was apparent that evidence revealed that Tri-Marea was armed with a Glock 21 SF. And the SF stands for short frame. And the short frame is basically a model of firearm that's used that's going to be more concealable and comfortable with the size of the shooter. Okay, depends on your hand size. I hate those small ones. It's important to notice that the 21 Glock SF is modified to have a switch. That the one that Tri-Marea was using had a switch. Right now, Glock switch is defined as a small device that can be attached to the rear of the slide of a Glock handgun that changes the semi-automatic pistol into a selective fire machine gun. Basically, it turns it into a machine gun. Pretty much, that's considered a cop killer in the hands of many criminals. Okay. Now, historically, handguns have always been considered the most likely weapon used to kill police officers. So a Glock that has been modified into a machine gun with an extended high-capacity magazine definitely can be seen as a cop killer. That's what a lot of people are not understanding. Okay. The firearm is also equipped with what is called an extended magazine, right? It's often referred to as extended clip in the streets, and it's going to give the shooter approximately 30 rounds that could be spent in about 2 seconds if the shooter pulls the trigger. All right. Now, if you can look at this extended magazine, you can see that the one to the very to the far left has it where the magazine, the extended capacity, gives you 32 rounds, right? And I do believe it's even more when we look at the one on the far right. Either way, and that's because if you're counting them, notice you have to store like 4 or 5 at the top. That's usually how magazines actually start. But either way, you can see this person can have 30 plus rounds to fire within a matter of 2 seconds at a police officer. All right. So we're talking about a 45 caliber handgun with 30 plus possible bullets. And I'm willing to speculate that that was the fact, actually the fact that he had to switch. That was the reason why he was trying to evade the police that night. All right. Now I knew that Tri-Marea, I believe that he knew that he would get a federal charge and it would put him in prison for the rest of his life. And I believe that he took a chance with his ability to run faster than the average man. He knew that the police officers probably carried too much weight with their belts and with the vests, with their foot belts and the vest. And seeing how they were all on foot, he believed that he could possibly get away. All right, that's just my speculation on that, right? I believe he could have gotten away had he not tripped, because I just find it so crazy that he was so fast that he could juke Officer Baez and pick up the firearm and then get across the street, switching hands before he was able to be struck down by 2 different officers shooting at 2 different angles. All right. And I do believe that he was trying to evade both officers. I think there's no discrepancy there, right? Because he turned his body away from the second officer, right? But I think he only ran into that officer because he didn't know that that officer was waiting there on that corner of the house as he tried to turn the corner on Officer Baez. Right now, like I said, I'm in the comments. You can speculate all you want to. There's speculation as to how the firearm ended up in his left hand, so just before he dropped it. But we can speculate about that. All right. Now it was noted that the firearm had a depressed trigger. They say. Let me go ahead and go back one. And you would do that to me, wouldn't you? Told y'all sensitive. Let's switch this. Sorry about that. I told you it was like real sensitive. Mess with it, not all right. If you give me 1 second, get it right back on the screen. There we go. All right. There we go. You want to fight with me today. The reason why I wanted that on the screen was because technically we're going to get right to the video. And I'm going to show you this fast, and then we're going to start slowing it down. All right. So let me go ahead and get to the video. I want y'all to listen to everything as I try to piece what was left, what's out there. So I can get this kind of over with.
Titusville Police, Titusville Police. Hey, how you doing, ma'am? Titusville Police Department. We got our supervisor on scene. You mind stepping out of the house?
Yeah.
Upon Officer 1's request, 2 occupants exited the house. Suddenly, a third subject, Tri-Marea Charles, ran through the front door and in doing so, tripped over the homeowner's walker, falling to the ground.
Subject's up. He's got a gun. He's got a gun. He's got a...
Give me your other hand.
dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead.
Subject just rushed me with a firearm.
I'm dead.
Get me other officers here.
I'm going down. I fucked up my life. It's over with.
Roll medical. Roll medical.
Now I'll pull this back. We finna speculate this real quick. All right. Now we're looking at this. And we heard the officer, allegedly Officer Baez. We hear him instruct them to leave to come out of the house. And one person came and sat outside first. And then Tri-Marea came out and he tripped. Now, I'm gonna try to see if I can slow this down just enough. I think it blanks out with this version, this video. I can look at the other one though. But you can see him falling, putting his hand out. His phone is in his hand. He falls to the ground, right? We see him on the ground. This is so crazy. Like in a matter of like not even a second, he was up. It's all very blurry. But you can see a lot of this is because he took Officer Baez, the Officer One, by surprise. You see him looking at the corner of the house now. He's trying to look up. Tri-Marea is already up and on his feet. Firearm on the ground, cell phone on the ground. Okay. Tri-Marea then decides that he's going to move to the right. And I think because the officer was in front of him, right there in front of the porch, I think he was intended to juke. You can see there's a police in the background. You can see in the back corner because they surrounded this house tactically perfect. Okay, and even in the video, if you slow the video down enough, you'll see the officers walking behind as the original officer is talking as he approaches. And there's more to it because when they first pulled up on the corner, they, instructed everybody to stay where they were. And then, you could see Tri-Marea decide he started to run across the street, and then he actually just walked back into the house. All right, now there's another version. There's a video and it shows where if you look behind the house, somebody's trying to get out the window. That was Tri-Marea. I know Broad News stated, somebody on Broad News stated they didn't see what they were talking about. Go look at that video, or if you can go down to the police department yourself. But I don't know if they even invite you in, because I know I heard some stories about how, you've worn out your welcome there. Don't know what that's all about, so I'm gonna leave that alone. But if you go look at that video, you can tell that is Tri-Marea in the back window. He was trying to get out the back window, but they had it kind of surrounded. Okay. So let's try to see if I can move forward. This mouse is so sensitive, but you can see he continued moving to the right. Okay. Keep in mind there's grass and there's leaves, and this man is moving without any cleats. And this man is fast, right? So fast his camera cannot really catch his speed. But you can see here he's planting that foot. He's planting the right foot, right? See it? Extend, there it is. He's now shifted his weight, okay? Or shifting his weight. Now, what you're not seeing, or what wasn't stated in the narrative, and I do believe the police chief did keep his word, but I think when we initially came out, just the initial aspect of what was said as far as the narrative, what he had said, I think was the order of events were kind of backwards. But I think there were two things that were backwards. Either way, it doesn't affect the outcome of this shooting, right? So what you're seeing though is you're going to see Officer, if you watch it fast enough, you will see Officer Baez move forward because he's trying to get his hands on Tri-Marea. But Tri-Marea is using these football skills. I'm telling you, it was just, you see an open hand from Tri-Marea. You also see a hand from Officer Baez, right? He's reaching to try to tackle. Now, I'm trying to slow that back down. This may be where they were saying he punched him, all right? This is what was shown on the video as to when they slowed down, they put the red square on it, that he was punching, okay? Potentially. And it did look like that, somewhat complete could be that. from the dash cam angle. This could be where the punch happened. But I'm gonna show you the next frame. You see the hand here, right? This could have been where the punch connected. Then the next frame, his hand is open. So I don't know if he punched him and then opened his hand, or if he was trying to use his open hand to kind of chop him and get him off, because he was in the position, in the process of juking. Okay. You also see Officer Baez's hand. I don't know if I can leave it there. I think it won't hold. Let me see. It will hold. So let me see if I can pull this. Let me do this. Let's see if I can get it right. This we're gonna do. We're gonna do it too. All right. This is Officer Baez's hand, trying to grab Tri-Marea. He's trying to grab Tri-Marea at this point, right? And there's Tri-Marea's hand, which is open. Like I said, I think he was trying to do a move and trying to do a chop, get his hands off him. This is something you're taught in football, right? Let me go ahead and clear that off. Yeah. All right. Let me get back to where we at. All right. So you see the open hand. At that point, you still see Officer Baez's hand up at the top. Tri-Marea is now gone. Okay, he gone. He put that full juke on him, and I'm thinking that's what the hand was for, right? So here's the hurtful part about all of this. He is so fast that I told my brother, I said, if he didn't trip, he would have made it. He'd have been gone. So at this point, you see it kind of stop. You see the angle. Baez is taking the bait, and it's all the way over on the left, or on his, on Tri-Marea's, Tri-Marea's right, and then Tri-Marea is actually moving towards the firearm now. So I want y'all to pay attention, because you won't really see it on this, but you can kind of see him starting to bend down. You see the distance he's at. Baez loses him. You don't see it. It's where the video is just so bad. You want the dash cam so bad on this one, or the other officer's body cam on that one. Not sure what you're seeing here, but you're seeing Tri-Marea's foot. He's about 2 to 3 lengths ahead. I think at this point he had already picked up the firearm and he was headed towards the other officer. But I don't think he knew the other officer was there. I think he just saw bright lights. This is where, actually, let me go back up. Let me back up. During all of that, I think at this point when we were looking down, that was when Tri-Marea was grabbing the firearm. And I don't know if there's a tree in the yard. I don't know if Baez was dealing with that tree or what. But at this point is when Baez was screaming, he's got a gun. So I think that's where Tri-Marea picked up the firearm. Now we're moving forward. All this is happening in a matter of seconds. Like this man is fast, okay? And you can see him already moving at the top. So he already has to have the firearm in his hand, all right? The extended magazine is on the ground. All the rounds have been spent, or all the rounds have been strode all over the yard there. We now know all the rounds. I'm not gonna say all the rounds, that's speculation. Most of the rounds maybe have been, spread across the yard at that point. But you can already see the next frame from what I just showed you. His other foot picked up. He is on the move. That's 3, almost 4 lengths ahead, right? Move some more. You can see him running. Before he even reached the sidewalk, Baez has already reached for his gun and has already tried to take it out and discharge it. He's shooting at this point. If you watch the video again, we'll watch it again. But he's shooting at this point where he's running towards the other officer. Okay. I don't know safety or what or how they train. That's something that you have to get into in the police academy. However, at this point, he's crossing the sidewalk. It's a very short distance. The camera makes it look like a large yard, but it's not. And the proof to that is the police chief stated that it was 700 square foot house and they pulled 16 individuals out. That is a really small house. I'm telling you that house is as big as my brother's living room. All right, that's a very small house. He was already firing at this moment, at this time. Tri-Marea saw the other officer and decided that he was going to turn, and that's where you can see that. And you see that here. He's already shifting his body to turn. I think at this point he was trying to get behind the house across the street and get over to Browns Avenue, maybe dump the firearm at this point. Okay, now we know the firearm has a switch, so at this point he's probably trying to evade the police because he does not want to get caught with this firearm, because that would have been his. He'd have been in jail for a very long time after that. Now, the crazy thing is this man get across that street. That's about 12 feet, man. 2 car lengths or 2 car widths. And he's still shooting. I don't know, maybe 13 shots I counted, but I don't want to do that because because I knew there was 2 officers involved. So at that point, counting was kind of crazy. You had to wait for the forensic evidence. I know that there are 2 bullet holes across the upper portion of the house. I have a photo of it, but I didn't upload it. And there is another that is close to the window unit air conditioner. All right. But at this point, you see the light from the tack light from the Glock 21 SF hitting the ground, and that's where the firearm was supposedly located. Right. Shots are still ringing out. What was suspected was that once that Tri-Marea dropped the firearm, because it probably hit him, the bullet probably hit him, and his nerves maybe caused him to let go. And these are all stumbles, but he was so fast that he made it to the corner of that house. If you go to the house and you look, you'll see it. The camera does make it look larger, make the yard look larger than it appears, but that's still a good distance to be running before he, falls after all those shots that are taken. In the corner of the house is where you see Tri-Marea's final resting spot. Now, over there. All right. Now, this is the other video. Let me go ahead and try to see if I can get the final. No, but that's just a shot of the open hand. I'm going to show it one more time, and then we're going to get back to finishing this up. Okay.
Titusville Police. Hey, how you doing, ma'am? Titusville Police Department. We got our supervisor on scene. You mind stepping out of the house?
Yeah.
Upon Officer 1's request, 2 occupants exited the house. Suddenly, a third subject, Tri-Marea Charles, ran through the front door and in doing so, tripped over the homeowner's walker, falling to the ground.
Subject up! He's got a gun! He's got a gun! He's got it!
Give me your other hand. I'm dead.
Subject just rushed me with a firearm.
I'm dead.
Get me other officers here.
I'm going down. I fucked up my life. It's over with.
Roll medical! Roll medical!
Suspect just rushed me with a firearm, called, get me other officers here. That was what he said as he stood over the body. Okay. It was noted that the firearm had a depressed trigger, so it could be said that he was possibly trying to pull the trigger and fire a round as he was running. He would have to try to fire the only round that would be left in the chamber if there was one in the chamber, but I seriously, personally doubt that, because if you know a switch, and if you had a switch, if you've had a round in the chamber, you know, if you depress that trigger, you can shoot yourself just trying to take it out of your pants or whatever, or your waistband or whatnot, or off your person. You probably do that a little bit easier, all right? So I don't think that he had a round in the chamber. So how that trigger got depressed, I don't know. Okay, I can't speculate as to how. I know that law enforcement has speculated that he, like another person that they found over Central Florida, I suppose, was trying to shoot a firearm in that position that I just showed. By pointing a firearm back as the arm swings up from, you know, from their stride, you know, as their mid stride. Okay. Let me say this before we go any further. All right. I have to define excessive and or unwarranted use of force here. And in this incident, it's extremely difficult. You know, when I said way back in 2021 about police brutality, that we have to consider the provocation and we have to consider the assault as well. All right. So provocation and assault. Was the officer's use of force excessive? Some say the second officer's use of force was warranted, but the question, the excessiveness of Officer Baez shooting Tri-Marea in the back so many times is raised, right? They have questioned if Officer Baez's response was unwarranted, and I have just tried to answer that without speculation. A justified shooting is not considered, and it's the definition, is not considered a crime because the action of shooting was legally, okay, permitted under the established justification defenses, okay? These defenses typically include self-defense, defense of others, defense of property, and there's other specific conditions, right? Justified shooting in a legal term means the use of deadly force that is deemed lawful due to specific circumstances. Often, the most common justification is self-defense, okay? Self-defense involves the reasonable belief that deadly force is necessary to prevent imminent death or serious bodily harm to oneself or another, like in this case, right? In some cases, deadly force may just be justified to protect property, but that's often limited and requires reasonable belief of imminent danger. That's why it's stated under specific conditions. A key element is that the person is using deadly force must have reasonable belief. Believe, what I told you about belief, can be accepted without evidence. That threat is imminent and that deadly force is necessary to prevent imminent danger. And that's where the conversation can veer off to the right, because we often get into an argument surrounding the stand your ground laws. But we're not having that conversation tonight. Right now, we're just talking about Officer Baez's discretion, and that may warrant some specific condition to justify the use of deadly force. And that is established justification for defense of others. Now, they may not truly be his justification or his reason for choosing that course of action, but we don't know that because our premature and irresponsible focus from the get-go was getting Police Chief John Lau fired. And it's crazy because you can't even see that was a manipulation that was conjured up by the Democratic mayoral candidate with the bone to pick with him and the Titusville Police Department, or just him. She had this low-hanging fruit Democratic agenda, okay? Let me get to this. Let me punch this real quick, all right? Just like I expressed a few times last live stream, we as a community missed out on a prime opportunity to get this correct, okay? At no point have we implemented any effective strategic measures that would provide transparency to achieve police accountability. Now, fancy words, but I'm gonna tell you this. Often the main complaint from the public attributed to this particular incident is the hiring of Officer Baez. Now, did see someone actually step and talk about that, right? The city council. But I said, if we're paying attention, the Titusville Police Chief John Law specifically mentioned the organizations that would be involved in the investigation in both videos published to Facebook, the February 8th video and the February 13th video. He referenced the Titusville Police Department's Professional Standards Division. That's transparency right there, okay? That's enough transparency for the demanding public to ask the right question, okay? Which is something that I've said that they were not doing from the start, okay? It's our responsibility to learn who these organizations are, the mission, how they're comprised. And right now you can go and Google and pull up the Professional Standards Division or the Internal Affairs Division of the Titusville Police Department. You actually, probably one of the first ones you'll be more familiar with is you go to the Titusville City's website, and they'll tell you, all right, who it is and how they're comprised and how they operate, all right? Now, according to the Titusville City's website, the Titusville Police Department's Professional Standards Division oversees the Titusville Police Department's recruitment, hiring, training, and accreditation. The Titusville Police Department's Professional Standards Division their division's commitment to hiring the best of the best takes hard work and dedication. And it says, we have several department members who assist in training the local police academies, and we place a high value on applicants who are from the Titusville community. We are particularly proud that the Titusville Police Department is an accredited agency through the state of Florida. Our community can be proud of this distinction, and it helps assure that our law enforcement agency is using the best practices and scrutinized by outside assessment teams. The City of Titusville's website then gives you a telephone number to contact them. That's 321-264-7800. And I don't think I need to put the physical address, but that's next, right? So that's all there on the website, right? According to the city's website, could the Professional Standards Division be the entity to challenge the recruitment and hiring of Officer Baez? After the public learned about the documented history of Officer Baez shooting a man through the police vehicle's windshield, who was in the act of this guy who was in the act of waiting for a call of service, his call to service, his qualification, Baez's qualification could have been officially investigated by the Professional Standards Division. If Officer Baez exhibited a history of this sort of overzealous performance in answering a call for service in Titusville, his qualification and continued employment could have been officially challenged as misconduct if the police would have, if the public would have just simply contacted Internal Affairs or the Titusville Police Department's Professional Standards Division via official filed complaint. I wonder why all those questions that I asked earlier have been posed to the Titusville City Council, or the question about, who do we contact or who do we talk about this person's history. But I did see a lot of just boister and yell and interrupting and, just grandstanding on a lot of stuff. And, it's just like, come on, man, really? And I just said the same thing because I know the family's allowed their anger. The family can say whatever they want. But other people who had gotten up from Sanford and Action, whatever, and, this guy I was talking about reminds me of Jim Crow, and I'm sorry, I know that I heard or saw that Dwight Siegler passed away. I was kind of surprised by that. Just another thing that, I have a cousin that, just went to the hospital, and someone else I know that has gotten sick. Life is short. It is short. I think that's why we do all this, right? But you have to put a report in Internal Affairs, okay? Or in this case, the Professional Standards Division. And you got to put it in with your accusation of extreme police misconduct. It's the proof that the officer's actions were indeed extreme, excessive, and a definitive or definite unwarranted use of force, right? Back in 2020, this was one of the issues that led to the protests and strategic demands of defunding the police as a response to being ignored about this very issue. It was sussed out then that one of the reasons why this occurred was because it was considered to be an inherent consequence to the government's over-reliance on criminalization and policing to address most societal problems. I remember this being an issue because we had this huge discussion and we started talking about the crisis intervention teams. Crisis intervention teams are community-based programs that bring together law enforcement and mental health professionals and other partners to improve responses to individuals experiencing mental health crisis. Crisis intervention teams aim to provide a more effective and compassionate response to people in crisis, often involving specialized training for law enforcement officers to better understand and interact with the individuals with mental illnesses. I'm not going to go any further than that, but we had that huge discussion back in 2020, back in 2021, 22 about that, right? Too often we saw police misconduct associated with violence that was often a civil rights violation. We specifically addressed this on the platform years ago, and we covered many incidents that were happening at the time, which revealed the relevance to racial bias working together with police misconduct. We effectively expressed the sentiments of the participants of the protest, myself being one, and we gave insight here on this particular platform. Me and my co-hosts put hard work into giving insight into one of the most pressing issues, the social, economic, and racial inequities that stimulate systemic oppression. In regard to the shooting of Tri-Marea Charles, I don't have the evidence of that being the cause of this use of force. And I can ask the community why. Now, maybe on another episode, we can discuss Titusville Police Department culture. Whole nother one. But unofficially, I've heard several people talk for months about officer bias's rumored self-hatred. Okay. And I know that can be a difficult issue or something that could be something difficult to prove, right? However, I'm absolutely sure that the Titusville Police Department still has a policy that demands the fair and impartial, equitable, and objective treatment of Titusville citizens. I'm sure that impartiality is also extended to the visitors of the Titusville community. These are all unbiased policing standards that officers of the Titusville Police Department are held to, okay? They have that expectation. And to find any violations of those standards, you must contact the police chief himself, and or you have an option to put in an official complaint with the internal affairs with a detailed and documented complaint against any officer that is in violation of the previously mentioned unbiased policing standards, right? The continued employment of an officer who is conducting misconduct will be challenged, and the officer's certification could potentially be revoked. Now, in 2023, I specifically referenced this sort of issue. And the irony is that I did that on this exact, on that exact date, February 7th, 2023. All right. I did that on that exact day. Let me see. Check it out. Let me get this banner off the screen first. Let me check. To these conversations. I know they're tough. I know a lot of people don't like to have them, but we keep running into it, and there's a lot of people who turn their heads. And it seems like you in the Black community, people in the Black community, if you're going to ignore this problem when it comes and it sits on your doorstep, you're going to want everybody else to pay attention. You're going to want people to discuss this. You're going to want people to have the discussion and whatnot. But when they turn and they give the same treatment that you gave it and just ignore it and say, I don't even want to talk about it because I don't want to see the video. When you do that, you're doing yourself an injustice. Said that then. That was in reference to the superficial efforts. Specifically, I was talking about the superficial efforts that was the initiative or the response to police reform at that time, right? And that was to hiring Black officers. And I was stating that hiring Black officers is just to put a Black face out there to make the same form of policing more comfortable or acceptable on the surface. Now, how that form of policing only masked the representation was something I referenced. And I said, that's the issue, because that was one of the things that came up with the Tyree Nichols beating. Okay, he was beaten by what, 5 officers, and then there was one that was white, I think the 6 total. But we talked about that. That was an issue that came up. And I was saying that form, that initiative, only shows representation, but it isn't true representation. And the issue preceding that issue is an assumption that hiring Black police officers will stop issues like police brutality without first addressing the police culture, right? And that's why I said what I said. That's why I said that. I said we'd have to have a very extensive conversation about Titusville Police Department culture. I talked about every police entity or law enforcement entity in Brevard County, not specifically Titusville Police Departments, but I was referencing the Brevard County Sheriff's Office and other police departments across Brevard County. The reason why I said that, there's two reasons. I'm not going to tell you my personal, the biggest reason why, because I've had some personal issues where I've had some personal contacts with some people, basically some people associated with the industry. They're racist, flat out. They done said some racist stuff and bought into some ideologies that, you know, like that's so far over on the, like far right extremism is a possibility, right? But the other issue is you look at like Carrie Horn, other individuals that were reporting excessive use of force or whatnot from the inside. They were punished and they were targeted. And so that means there's a culture that they have to fight, a culture that they're trying to change. So that's a big issue we have to talk about, right? A lot of people don't want to have that conversation. And until we have that conversation and be real about it, this kind of stuff is just going to continue to happen, right? Where we just sit there, we're, you know, left to speculate. You know, at any time you feel that the professional conduct of any law enforcement officer isn't in line with the Titusville Police Department's community policing philosophy, you can file a complaint and challenge the competency of that police officer to get yourself competent or get yourself competent legal representation. Do that instead of doxing, right? Because executing a civil action plan is the primary final response to any police accountability issue, all right? It's wise for us to keep in mind the legislative laws that will apply to your dispute. Now, I'm going to conclude this, all right? I hope you understood what I was saying. We just told my mic was muted. I don't know which mic they're talking about, but finally, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to end this tonight, but I'm going to personally acknowledge the family of Tri-Marea. All right, it's obvious that Samantha Charles isn't alone. A part of the Titusville community grieves with her. Giving birth to a son is sometimes considered the mother's greatest triumph. Okay, so it stands to great reason to assume that losing a son will possibly equal her greatest tragedy. During her time of grief, the community must not abandon her. They must help her find grace as well as strength to resurrect the most positive and loving shared memories of her son, Tri-Marea. I hope the community helps her understand how to use the memories that, you know, they help her resurrect to motivate her through all of her attempts to find peace. And it's incumbent for everyone who understands that a parent is never supposed to experience the chaos or the pain that follows the loss of a child, right? I was just watching a clip with my son, John Q, and he was saying, I'm not going to bury my son is going to bury me. And I think we're going to try to see if we can watch that movie. But getting back to Samantha Charles, I'm going to share something from my personal experience. So I've been grieving the death of my mother back in 2012. And I tried to reconcile, you know, my grief with search for, you know, completion. I was on this path of trying to look at the whole, okay? And I felt like a part of me was missing when my mom died. And I thought that, you know, I would find some peace through trying to read. So I was reading the Bible a lot. And through my readings, I started to interpret a lot of these concepts. And this concept of the whole is one that I focused on. All right, now the concept of the whole is equated to the idea of completeness. And in many practical ways, it's considered perfection. All right. And that impressed upon me to search for the idea of perfect peace, what the scriptures read as Shalom, Shalom. I was reading a book at the time of her death, and that book was entitled Code of the Holy Spirit. And I'm not going to tell you to go buy it, but I'm going to tell you it's in my library. I had it up here. I think I put it back in my room. It was a book entitled Code of the Holy Spirit. And in it read a passage about this perfect or complete peace. Now, a person's mind must be stayed upon the Lord. This Hebrew word refers to a stay or a tent pole that holds up the weight of a tent. The pressure of that tent rests upon the pole, just as the pressures of our minds can rest in peace as we place our mental cares upon Yeshua. Trusting the Lord is to take refuge in or have confidence in him. True peace secures and undergirds the mind. The human brain has two hemispheres, the left and the right hemisphere. Each hemisphere has a specific function that directs the five senses, the functions of the organs, and the ability of the reason to think. The Most High gives us peace and peace, or as I view it, peace for both the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. I think that is what's meant by Shalom, Shalom, or perfect peace, a complete peace. I cannot guarantee that kind of peace for you. As a person, I still deal with a lot of the pain from the loss of my mother. And that was 13 years ago. All right. But I know that being a father helps give me great purpose for my future. And that metaphor of a tent pole being a center that holds the pressures of the tent sounds like the job of a father. It also sounds like the job of a mother. And I know that, Tri-Marea has at least one sibling that will need you too, probably now more than ever. Okay. And the purpose of your future is right there. So as you continue to try to fight this good fight of faith, please accept, our condolences on the loss of Tri-Marea Charles. And I pray that you find peace, that perfect peace. When I sit and think for long enough, I start to get too emotional about my mom, but there's a lot that I didn't get to do, but there was a lot that I did make sure. There were times I, had arguments with other friends because I want to, go check on my mom. So I did it right. And I checked on my mom every chance I got. So, now that gives me some peace. Not a complete peace, but that gives me some peace. So just look at you, what you've done. And you try to do the best you could. And he had an opportunity to get out. We just have to figure out what can we do. We need like a semi-pro league. We need more basketball leagues. We don't need people kicking us out of the gym so they can play pickleball here in Brevard County. We need, we need the most vulnerable part of our community, and I mean vulnerable to, selling drugs, getting in gangs. We need that. We need something for them. All right. So thank you for everybody who did view for a few moments, even if you popped in and popped out. You probably view it later. As always, I appreciate all of you. I wish all of my supporters authentic love, enduring peace, and may the Most High guide your path.